Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Janine Parolini, the MBA Program Director here at Bethel University, and I've got my helpful colleague, Carrie, here with us to serve you today. I'm excited about talking with you about the topic of emotional intelligence today because, as this title says, we are in unprecedented times. And so I believe that emotional intelligence is really going to help us maneuver through. So I'm grateful that you are interested in this topic as well, and I look forward to sharing with you today. So one of the things I'd like to start with is just a bit of a personal story that one of the reasons I'm excited about emotional intelligence and have studied it is because I didn't really have much of it as a young person and in my growing up years. And yet God has been so incredibly good to me to nurture me along the way in developing emotional intelligence. And it's added so much value to my personal and my professional life. You know, it was interesting a few years ago where I had a publisher approach me and ask me to write an article on connecting emotional intelligence with the Christian faith. This was for a seminary book. And I was surprised that a publisher would approach me. And he said, actually, you're considered to be one of our experts on emotional intelligence. And I was floored. So I want to encourage you, that one of the reasons I was floored because of all the work that God had done in my life, taking me from having a lack of it to now, being considered an expert. And I still have a lot of room to grow in emotional intelligence. But I want to encourage you that maybe you'll be writing an article on this topic as well as you continue your journey here. So because of my own lack of emotional intelligence, I did study it hard. And over time, I developed a true love for it and have used it in my own growth and learning along the way, as well as had the opportunity to coach and to train and to teach others. In fact, I get to, for our Bethel Seminary, teach a course for 16 weeks on emotional intelligence. It's actually coming up this fall. And I've taught it several times before, and I really enjoy just sinking into the topic for even a 16-week course, let alone bringing it into our MBA program as much as we can. So today, both Carrie and I hope that you gain insights that will positively impact your personal and your professional life. Now, we're a Christian university, but we don't push our faith on anyone, but just know that we're going to be praying for you along the way today as well. Let me share with you briefly about our MBA program just for a minute, because there's a key point I want to make too about some of the research I found on emotional intelligence recently. So the purpose of our program is to develop our students professionally, intellectually, personally, ethically, and spiritually. And you can see that emotional intelligence is a huge part of each of these 5 areas that we're focused on. So one of the assignments that we have our students do as they're going through their program is to develop a career growth journal or career growth roadmap. And they do it on each of these 5 areas, what they're learning and how they're developing. Well, it was so interesting because as I was doing research for this webinar, I actually found some researchers that in 2019, they found that developing a career growth roadmap or journal actually helps us to grow in emotional intelligence. So the reason I share that with you is whether you're in our MBA program or you're not in our program, you can still develop your own career growth roadmap and also enhance your emotional intelligence skills along the way. So I want to encourage you to consider that as maybe part of this journey that you're on. So today we hope that you will not only get an experience of our MBA classroom, especially right now on Zoom, but that you will also take something away that's going to benefit your personal and your work life. So let me tell you a little bit about our agenda today. First of all, I'm going to start out with sharing some research on emotional intelligence. And I did some digging into the latest research too that I would like to share with you because I want to provide us just a solid footing as to why this is really an important topic and why it's so important that you pay attention to this even beyond our hour together today. then what I'll get into is two key areas of emotional intelligence that I'll really, talk with you about, the self-awareness piece and the self-regulation piece. And then we'll do a bit of polling together. Your poll will be anonymous. I can have you chat your questions in along the way, and we'll try to respond to that. And also then towards the end, we'll get into those prizes that we have. I'll tell you a little bit about the program, and then we'll get into our prizes. So we will be recording this time today because we've had a few interested participants that were not able to make this time, but your face and your name will be anonymous. So I just wanted to mention that to you. So let me get into our topic and share some research with you. All right, here are some EI stats. As you can see, organizations recognize the importance of emotional intelligence, promoting it and recruiting it. More and more organizations are recognizing that. And higher emotional intelligence relates to higher job satisfaction. That's what we're finding as well. And we found that pretty far along the way. And then there's many studies that show that EI contributes to our ability to lead, to our ability to be on a team, to agile leadership or flexible leadership, to having less stress in our life, to being engaged at work and with others, to productivity, resilience, our actual whole well-being, and our relationship successes. So EI is being found to really connect to all those pieces. And I wanted you to be aware of that. I thought that was important to sort of building our case today for why ER is so important. One of the areas that I found as I was doing my research is that many researchers are suggesting that the way to really start with EI training is by helping people to recognize their own emotions. Now, I thought that's interesting. Sit with that for a minute. So what they're saying is if they've done the research is the first thing that we need to do to grow in our emotional intelligence or continue growing is to really be aware of our own emotions. Now, I know in our workplaces, I've been in business, worked for a lot of different organizations, that can seem a little touchy-feely, but actually it's really important. And we'll talk more about that. And this is what research and training is showing that we need to do. There's growing importance on companies on EI. If you haven't seen that in your own, then there's other organizations we can look at. For example, PSI, which is a consulting firm, they did a 2015 survey across 50 UK organizations, and they found that 90% of them recognized emotional intelligence as important or crucial to areas of their organization like working relationships, stress management, and leadership. So 90% of these UK organizations found that to be the case. The Future of Jobs report, it ranked emotional intelligence as one of the top 10 skills that would grow in prominence between 2018 and 2022. And I know we're kind of right at the end of that time frame, but then listen to this. This was echoed by a McKinsey report that predicted social and emotional intelligence skills would be increasingly essential for major job transitions as we look into up to 2030. So that's sort of some future that we can expect. And in a 2019 survey on 400 leaders, EI was the fastest growing soft skill need in the workplace. Now, also, the World Economic Forum predicts that 42% of our current core skills will be outdated by next year, by 2022, and that emotional intelligence and social intelligence and leadership will increase in demand. So that's very interesting, and that's one of the reasons I'm grateful that you're here today and that we're paying attention to this topic together. Now, here's a little more interesting research as well. We're finding that the lack of emotional intelligence actually can more likely equate to failure. And this is being backed up by a number of studies that show organizations may potentially feel because of lack of emotional intelligence, between people or in their climate or in the culture of their organization. A global leadership research company that followed 20,000 new hires over 3 years ago found that 23% failed because they were unable to understand and manage emotions. 23% of their 20,000 new hires were unsuccessful because they failed to recognize emotion. And then of the group of new employees that were deemed to have failed, it was found that 89% of them failed due to interpersonal, attitudinal, or behavioral reasons rather than their technical skills. So this is why technical skills are important. We teach technical skills in our MBA program, but listen to how important these emotional intelligence skills are to our relationship ability, our ability to collaborate, our ability to lead and influence. They're huge. We can learn the technical skills along the way, but learning and mastering emotional intelligence is really important to us. The Denning Center for Quality Management found that 50% of time is actually wasted in business because people don't trust each other. And see, emotional intelligence is really important to building trust. When we're intuitive into our own emotions and intuitive into the emotions of others, we can actually help maneuver that trust piece. Then the Forum Corporation on Manufacturing and Services revealed that 70% of customers were lost because of EI-related reasons. So we're doing this today because at Bethel, we want you to succeed. We want you to find your true meaning and purpose and succeed in it. All right, just a bit more research, and then we'll move on to more of our topic specifically. So some more good news on emotional intelligence. Look at this, that in 2015, it was found that EI helps you to regulate your positive effects. So what that means is emotional intelligence helps us to regulate our demeanor, our how people experience us, our joy, our happiness. And so that positive effect in us then helps contribute to our creativity. So think about how, a positive climate of emotional intelligence, in us, in our team, in our organization, can actually increase our ability to innovate. And then emotional intelligence, it contributes to our cross-cultural capability. And this is very important today. And so EI really helps to enhance that. Do you know something else I found too as I was researching, which I think is just a hoot, is that we're finding that in order to conduct artificial intelligence well, we're actually going to need more emotional intelligence. So our ability to program robots, work with artificial intelligence in lots of different ways, we're going to be able to master it better if we have stronger and stronger emotional intelligence. So just to make a point that emotional intelligence is not going away. It's only going to be more needed in our society and in our personal and professional lives. Okay, a few more stats on EI, and then we'll move on. So EI is positively related to organizational citizenship behavior. So that's what this means, is that emotional intelligence is positively connected to your relationship with your organization. And it's also negatively related to counterproductive work behavior. So if you're a hiring manager and you're hiring people who have stronger EI, you're more likely to have more efficient and effective people working for you. And then there's also research from 2015 that found it creates to greater career enhancement, which honestly, I have experienced in my life. As I've grown in my emotional intelligence, I've found that I enjoy my career more, but also I have more opportunities. And here's the best news on EI. The better people are at recognizing their emotion, the better they handle the politics in the organization. Now, I understand that politics is kind of a difficult word today, but you know what? Politics is really important. we actually teach a course talking a lot about organizational health in our MBA program. And we talk about the politics in an organization. Politics really is the ability of someone to negotiate conflict and negotiate the use of resources. And you can imagine how important that is in organizational life, in business life, in ministry life, in nonprofit life, in family life. So politics is really one's ability to negotiate the conflicts and negotiate how the resources are managed. And so, of course, we want that to be done well, fairly, and equitably. And so, someone who has emotional intelligence is much better at being able to maneuver that political side of the organization. And also the interpersonal aspects of work life, the relationships, the collaboration. And then get this, they earn more money. So people with emotional intelligence seem to be able to find ways to earn more money. So I hope that this gives you a bit of a solid foundation as to why this is such an important topic. And I'm truly grateful that you recognized it and you signed up for this. And as we move into our next area, feel free to start chatting some of your questions. Carrie's going to be watching out for those, and we will address them in a little bit here. What I'd like to do now is get you into really a summary of what emotional intelligence theory is. Now, again, I've been studying this topic, I think, for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of different models, which actually can be quite confusing. But as I really, think through this critically, it really boils down, emotional intelligence boils down to these two areas. The self-awareness piece, which is our intrapersonal, it's within us side of who we are. And then the self-regulation piece, how we handle what's going on inside of us and also manage it, maneuver through it with other people around us. Now, as we get into this, I'd like you to keep in mind that emotional intelligence can be learned. And so I want to encourage you in that. I've learned it. I've also been part of training and coaching others in learning it. So if you're feeling like you're low in this area, there's hope. You can learn this. You can develop the skills for this. So after researching the definitions, again, I just want to make this simple to you because then hopefully it's something you can remember. Now, why? And remember, training said, hey, let's start with the self-awareness piece. And I want to talk about why that self-awareness piece is so important, because I do know, being in business, that a lot of times businesses think, check your emotions and leave them at the door. That's not how people work. You can't check your emotions and leave them at the door. You're a whole person. You come to work with what you come to work with. But the question is, how can we be aware, and then how can we regulate them well? So, I'm bringing this up because I want us to understand that we need to think new about this. We don't check our emotions at the door as people. We bring them with us. And you know what? Any good company wants us to bring our emotions, because emotion equates to passion. Passion equates to motivation. Motivation equates to engagement. So you can see where companies really don't want us checking our emotions at the door. They want us bringing them because they want us to bring that passion and motivation and engagement in our jobs as well. So why is it so important that we start with this self-awareness piece? And let me come back to these unprecedented times. And I know we're so aware, we're experiencing so many changes in our lives. And that's what I just want us to pause for a moment and be aware of, that, think about all the changes that we're going through just even in this past year. Our personal and our family life has been disrupted. We can't do all the things that we were doing before, and we can't do them all the same way. So that's a big change, to the system. Our work lives have changed. It's likely, many of us are working at home. Many of us, the way we do our work has changed, or our products have been impacted because of all the change. So this has disrupted, our work life. And then we've got our kids and our family life. So kids are working at home with school, or maybe they're going, part-time to school and part-time at home, or maybe they're fully in school. I mean, it just depends, but your kids have been changed. So you're trying to navigate that. Even, if you're a parent, that's a lot of change too. And then we've got our technology in our home structure. So we're using more technology. It's putting more pressure on our home structures too, especially if you have multiple people at home and the kids are at home. So there's a lot more stress there, and there's a lot more stress on relationship. Ordering food is different, and going out has gone, off and on, and has changed in some ways. Our shopping experiences have changed. I don't know about you, but it's like, always remembering a mask. I mean, it's hard for me still to remember a mask. And then, we need to remember to stay distant. Well, we're naturally want to be close to people, especially the ones who are close to us. And now we have to remember to be distant. So that has really impacted us. Some of us may have had a job transition, or maybe we lost a job, or maybe we lost some money in our check, and that's a big change. Now we have to navigate that. Maybe we've been ill, or we've experienced someone who's been ill close to us, and there could be loss there. So, I just want to point out that all of this change is a lot. And even if some of it is good change, it's still a lot on the system. And so this is why I felt it's really important to do a topic like this, because it's a lot of stress to our system. And it's really important that as our system is stressed like this, that we're even more tuned in to what's going on in the inside, even though the outside around us wants to, is calling us and pushing us for more. It's even more important for us to be aware of what's going on the inside. And the why to that is because if we're not aware what's going on in the inside, then it has more of a chance to control us, do some negative damage to ourselves or to other people. But if we're aware of what's going on in the inside, then we have more of a chance to have control over it before it does too much damage to us or to others. So this is why our emotions do need to be nurtured. It's not touchy-feely to actually do that. So I am going to ask you a question that may feel touchy-feely still to you, but my question is, how are you feeling? This is a really important question. It's a question that I want you to consider asking yourself more regularly, because my guess is it's not likely that people around you ask you this question very much. So it's all the more important that you're asking yourself this question, so that in these times of really high stress that we're going through right now, where all of our rhythms have changed, we can be aware of what's going on inside and take control before it takes control of us in a negative way. So how are you feeling right now? Can you get a hold of that? Are you aware of how you're feeling? Are you stressed? Are you anxious? Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you peaceful? Are you overwhelmed? Can you get to that in a few minutes, or maybe later today or tomorrow? Or, consider how long it takes for you to check in and touch base with how you're feeling. It's something I'd like you to think about. Consider that if we don't pay attention to how we're feeling, we might actually not be seeing things accurately around us. So part of what we're sensing and picking up needs to be made aware to us so that we are accurately looking at things. And let me offer you a few reasons for that through the input of other organizations. I've got 3 organizational examples here of why they're paying attention to emotional intelligence. And so let me offer these to you. So for example, we've heard of Four Seasons, this fantastic hotel chain. Well, their employees are entrusted to make on-the-spot decisions to improve a client's experience. That's what they pride themselves in. The company requires staff to interact with their guests authentically, positively, and appropriately in the moment, which actually requires a high level of empathy and self-awareness at all times for those workers to be that authentic in the moment. So Four Seasons employees ask their interviewees, when they interview someone, they ask them this question: tell me about a time you did something for someone. How did it make you feel? The reason the interviewees ask this question is because they believe it's easy to spot if somebody's being authentic or not by asking them how they feel. They watch for how soon they can get in touch with that and express themselves, because that then relates to authenticity. And then as Four Seasons does onboarding, they take a deep dive into emotional intelligence activities such as mindfulness or meditation. And, you may like those terms, you may not. You may want to think about them as, prayer or God's presence, however you want to think about those. Just being aware and tuned in, and, being prayerful or meditating on it is really important, because those are the types of activities that develop that empathy and compassion. So they do deep dive emotional intelligence activities in their training as they onboard employees. Then we've also got Harvard, that Fast Company wrote about in 2019, that they found that when training participants, when they're allowed to develop their visions through self-exploration and in-depth discussion with their peers and coaches, this leads to deeper levels of self-awareness and empathy, as well as the ability to understand the viewpoint of others. Now imagine how important that skill is today. If we had more people that were interested in the viewpoint of others and engaged in that and, was listening, I think some of these conflicts we're experiencing are huge, could be helped. Not saying totally resolved, but helped. And so this is what Harvard found, is that what we really need to do is get people talking about what's going on inside in safe groups with their peers and with some coaching alongside of them to help them with that success in empathy and self-awareness. And then there's a bank, UBS, a multinational bank and financial services company. I thought this was really interesting. They require their staff to be highly sensitive, empathic, and aware, so as not to turn off a potential client and then have them going to another financial institution. So they have their employees spend 3 days doing in-depth exploration of themselves and having deep conversations that involve high levels of self-awareness and empathy as well. So the bottom line here, we want to be aware of how we are feeling in a given moment to be able to best maneuver that moment, rather than letting our emotions control us and take us in a negative direction. And I'm hoping that for each of us, because there's too much negativity going on in our world today, and this can help us maneuver through it. So what I'm going to offer you is just some personal thoughts on some steps that I take to help me become self-aware. What I usually do is I do a morning check-in. As I wake up, I really ask God into my heart and to help me be aware of how I'm feeling in the morning. I can't remember what dream I had or what I left from the day before that was really bothering me throughout the night. So, I ask God to show me that. And you may talk to God, you may talk to, someone else, but just doing that morning check-in and that morning, surrender, so to speak, has been important to me. And then I have a daily reminder that I put in my phone. And last year, with all this going on, I found myself getting impatient with people. I was feeling cranky and kind of impatient. So I put a little note in my phone at 2:00 to remind me to say, choose gratitude and joy and patiently come alongside of people, so that I had that reminder, because that was a growth edge for me. I also will put a note card in my purse or maybe on my mirror on, 1 or 2 growth steps. Now, I encourage us to think about 1 or 2, because if you focus on 1 or you focus on 2, you're likely to be able to put that into motion. But if you give yourself, too many growth steps, then it might be hard to follow through. And then I do an evening check-in, before going to bed. It's the end of my evening, kind of wind down and, how did today go? And how do I feel about how today went? Is there anything I need to take care of there from the inside out? And so this does not have to be, a huge amount of time. I just want to encourage you to get some time in, some rhythm in, to continue to pay attention to yourself. This morning check-in could be 1 minute. The daily reminder could be 1 minute. The note card could be 1 minute. The evening review, 1 minute. So you've got a 4-minute process right here. And I know how it is. I've got a busy schedule myself, and it's challenging to keep up with myself. But I know the day goes so much better, and my relationships go so much better when I do. So anyway, just consider this. And I hope my example here might be helpful to you of some ways you might creatively, stay tuned into yourself. Now, if you have any ideas on what can get in the way for you of getting this time, or if you have any suggestions for what will help you get this time, feel free to put that in chat, because then others can see it, and maybe you might help someone else with their idea. So if you want to share about something that you do to make sure you get time, or something you might do to make sure you get this time, put it in there. It may help somebody else out. Or if you find that there's something that gets in the way, feel free to acknowledge that as well. Okay, so a commitment that I'd like us to make together. We got this slide and a bit of one other, and then we'll stop for those questions. These are some statements that I would love for us to, commit to ourselves. It's actually thoughtful to be aware of ourselves. It's thoughtful to others. Have you ever thought about that? That, if you're aware of yourself, how much you might have a more positive impact on other people. So when we're tuned into ourselves, we're more likely to be in control and less likely to create harm towards others. So this is where I'm really asking us to consider making this commitment to ourselves. And I think it's an appropriate commitment that we would say, I will tune into myself. I will know how I feel. I have a sense of why I feel as I do. And if I don't have the sense right now, I will put the time into figuring it out. I think this is a reasonable commitment to make to ourselves that will help increase our awareness, but also have a positive impact on our friends, our family, our coworkers, our boss, and others around us. As we get a hold of our emotions before they take hold of us, we're more likely to have a better interaction with others. So what I'm going to do is give us a poll right now that asks us, I am aware how I am feeling. And, again, this is going to be anonymous, but I'm curious with our group that how often do we know how we are feeling? Never, sometimes, often, usually, always. So go ahead and take that poll, and let's see how we do. And again, it's anonymous, but it'll just be interesting to see how we do. Oh, you guys are quick pollers. That's awesome. So I am aware how I'm feeling. So it's great that really, none of us are struggling with the never, but it looks like some of us, sometimes we know. And we had about 30% that often know, and half of us that usually know. It's great. And then about 6 of us that always know. So yeah, so let's, as we're looking at, I'll end this now. I'll share the results. Sorry, I got to show you the results. Okay, so it looks like we got a high percent that usually know, and maybe what we can all do is just make a commitment. Let's see if we can move into that next level. So I'm proud of you for showing up here, and even those who usually know or always know, for wanting to take even a deeper step. Okay, that was fun. Oh, I gotta hit that to hit that. Okay, so just finalizing this as we get into our Q&A now. So to be a better spouse, parent, grandparent, son, daughter, sister, coworker, don't forget ourselves. And that's just my reminder for this piece. So let's stop and pause for some questions. Carrie, what are some common theme questions that you're seeing out there that we can attend to?
Yes, Janine, we only have 2 questions, and they're kind of related. They're tough, but they're really good ones. So here you go. How do you manage to inform your boss about the importance of this area when your boss's emotional intelligence is probably so low that you know he or she may not take it well?
Oh, that is a tough piece. Anytime we're dealing with a person who's managing us or over us that has potentially less emotional intelligence or less emotional intelligence than we do, it's really hard. Yet it's also a really good growth opportunity. So that's what I'd like you to pay attention to. I've been in that place too. Probably many of you have been in that place. This is a really good growth opportunity for you to develop even more. And remember, you don't have to stay in that job forever either. So one of the things I would consider is to try to share some facts. So this is one of the reasons that I gave you the research, because I would like to encourage you to use that research. And if you would like a copy of this PowerPoint, you can just let Carrie know. We can get that to you. But also, if you just even get online and do some of your research on specific things about emotional intelligence, you will find the data. But I encourage you to start with some facts over the importance of it, and talk about what you hope. What you hope. And we'll talk about this even more as we get into this next area. But try to talk about it in a positive way. I'd like to see this. I think this change would be good for us, and here's why. And here's a little bit of research to show us potentially why this could be important. and see what that person does, because if they react, maybe just give them some time to think about it, because maybe they need to absorb it, and then bring the topic back maybe in a few days to a week and see how it settles with them. I'd say that's potentially a way to start. Carrie, what else do you have?
Yes. Next one is related to that. What are good ways to support your coworkers who are lacking in emotional intelligence?
Yes. Well, as a coach and, an instructor, what I found is one of the ways that I've helped people really develop emotional intelligence is by teaching them to actually pause and really listen to people and then reflect back. It's really interesting because as we really listen to people and reflect back what they're saying, it's almost like emotional intelligence deepens in us, and we start to expand our hearts and develop a little bit more empathy and sensitivity and understanding. So if there's a way that maybe you could model this by just doing some of that listening, and maybe even explain that you hoped that potentially, your relationship could develop to a point where you do this for each other, and try to help that person maybe navigate, listening a little bit better. It depends on your relationship with this person. Sometimes you do this gently, but other times, when you're in situations, sometimes you kind of have to directly say, this type of, action on your end is really impacting me this way and the rest of the team. And so sometimes you have to really confront it and then really request, more directly that they learn those skills. But other times you can kind of lead them softly down that path too. So it just depends on the kind of relationship that you have with this person and the place that relationship is in. But I hope some of those comments and suggestions really helped with that. Listening to others, reflecting back what they say, it really does expand our ability to be emotionally intelligent. Anything else, Carrie?
Yeah, we have another one. Is it possible to be self-aware but not manage it well?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. I mean, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking of myself, where I have just, I'm aware that I'm angry, but I snapped or I was critical or my tone wasn't really good because maybe I was really tired, and it's not an excuse, but it's just I was really tired, or I was frustrated. So yes, it is possible to do that. And what we can do then, because we're going to make mistakes, we're human, we can come back in and we can apologize and just say we're sorry and ask the person to accept our apology. And that is actually really good emotional intelligence, to be aware that you're feeling angry or something, you made a mistake, but then you can come back and own it. That's beautiful.
Here's another one for you, Janine.
Okay.
You were raised in a home where emotions were not acceptable. What is the easiest way to become more aware of them instead of burying them to get the job done?
That's a great question. And you know what? I grew up in a home where emotions weren't really acknowledged or valued. I was the youngest. I didn't really have a voice, and certainly not with emotions. And so, what I did is I checked myself into therapy. I got some therapy. I call it rent a friend. So, and I needed to do that for a time, you know, and even now I would go back and get a therapist if I needed some help. At this time in my life, you know what? I'm finding and navigating my friendships in a way where we can talk through these things. So, but in the absence of that, when I was initially trying to get out of that kind of family system in my life, I actually had to go out and hire somebody who was healthy as a therapist to help me navigate that. And then eventually I started finding friends who could do it. So I encourage that. But I think that really finding our voice is important. And as I get into this next section, I'll talk about how we share our voice in a way that is more likely to get a positive response from people. But I hope some of that helped. Carrie, do we have one more, or should we move on?
We do have another one.
Okay.
And here, someone is curious about your thoughts in relation to emotional intelligence and unconscious bias, especially as we all live in our personal, digital, and business echo chambers.
That's a great question, because this unconscious bias piece is it's always been hugely important, and we are talking more about it because we're recognizing the value of it. Sometimes it takes a long time for us to get things. So I apologize on behalf of human nature that we don't get things that we need to sooner, but we are becoming aware of this. And so you can just imagine, when you think about emotional intelligence, we really need that in order to investigate our unconscious bias. We really need that, because emotional intelligence is what will help us navigate that we are not aware of something and that we need to pay attention to it. So emotional intelligence helps us to navigate, that denial that's back here, or that blind spot that's back here, which is what that unconscious bias is. So yeah, great question, and very, very much attached. And I hope that was a helpful response.
Want one more? Do we have time?
Yeah, and then we probably should move on, and we'll
Okay.
get to some more a bit later, because I definitely want to make sure we get through the rest of section 2. Go ahead.
All righty. There's a little explanation first. Adele says, you talked about listening to others and then reflecting back what they say. Sometimes I find that when I reflect back what they say, I'm adding my own flavor and my own understanding by reading in between the lines of what they said. And sometimes I'm not exactly in understanding the other. I find that I need to ask if my interpretation in reflecting back is correct. Do you have any other advice in listening and reflecting back?
I think, Adele, that's a great question and a great learning. And, it's really part of human nature where we're going to put our spin on it. And I think what you're pressing into is excellent, because we're naturally going to do that. But then as we press into it and we recognize, oh, I put my spin on it again, and then we ask the person more questions, or we try to really get into their view of things, that's expanding us. And so that's really what it takes. It takes that we keep walking that journey out. We keep allowing ourselves to be expanded. And guess what? We got a lifetime to be expanded. We'll be expanded for the rest of our lives like that. So we'll consistently be learning about people. So I think accepting that is a human part of who we are, and just continue to push into that area of continuing to just try to listen better and take your spin out and listen to their perspective more. That will keep expanding that. Thank you, Carrie. Just save the others, and then we'll get to some of them even in a bit here too. So I want to make sure we get to the part of self-regulation, which is important as well as we navigate this webinar. I'd like you to think about what emotions tend to dysregulate you. And I'm actually going to put another poll up here. Again, this will be anonymous, but just again, to have a little bit of fun here. What emotions tend to dysregulate me is a question. And, because then as we're aware of that, that helps us then to be able to navigate through that dysregulation of that emotion. Another part of that is, expressing ourselves. So, some of us have been brought up that when we feel something that dysregulates us, like anger or frustration, we sometimes think we just need to keep it to ourselves. Well, that could be building a pattern of stuffing it, and then that's not the healthiest thing. Sometimes we actually need to speak up about it and even ask the person to do something. We might call that setting a boundary. So we sort of need to set some boundaries around our heart, so we're not, consistently getting dysregulated. So anyway, as we, let's see, I think we're pretty much in on this poll. So I'm going to end it and share the results. So it's interesting, and it makes sense. We've got a lot of fear and anxiety, about a third of us. Frustration is also tough. And then we're kind of, we've got overwhelm, which totally makes sense. And of course, then, those things can lead to anger. So good awareness of your, yourself and what dysregulates you. Okay, turn that off. So, oh, I gotta go back, click back on that. Sorry about that. One of the things I wanted to make sure I mentioned you that I kind of alluded to earlier is this idea of when we talk to others about what's going on inside. There is a theory called positive emotional attractor that I'd like you to be aware of. You can look it up if you want. What it says is that when we share something with someone, a vision or a request, it's better to share it in a positive way, saying something that we'd like, offering the person a vision for what we can see in a positive way. It's better than saying something negative about what they didn't do, because that can feel a little bit more like criticism, or maybe, someone can be resistant to. But when we say what we'd like, it sounds more positive, and it actually sets us up, based on this theory, to be, to receive a positive result. So here's an example, of how I might do this. And I had to do this recently with my niece. It would mean a lot to me if we could talk at a time when you're feeling a little calmer about this. And it was something we needed to navigate, and, just asking, can we just have a peaceful conversation? So giving a vision of, let's have a peaceful conversation about this. We both have enough, tension, stress in our world. You might say to somebody, I need you to stop slamming the door when you're angry at me. Or would you look at me when you're talking to me so that I know that you're really tuned in and listening? These are positive ways to share a vision with somebody about something that we need that might help us to even regulate better as we're interacting. Now, here's a couple things that I'm going to go through quickly here. I developed this thought or theory called the surrender transfer, and it really helps me. It's when I start to feel dysregulated, I really go to God, and you might go to God, or you might even have a saying that really helps you to be at peace, whatever that is. For me, I feel like, surrendering to God and maybe even reading a passage of scripture, like one of them for me is cast all your anxiety on him, for he cares for you, out of 1 Peter 7. And you might have a saying that really helps you, but that process of surrendering the stress, the anxiety, the anger really helps me to start calming down, and then receiving something new, receiving something more positive, and moving towards God. So when I'm letting it go and I'm receiving more positive, I feel like I'm closer to God, which helps me get to a better place. And what does that look like for you? What is it that you need to surrender to receive something better, so that you can get to a better place? Just a thoughtful, an idea for you. And I find this so interesting, about, I haven't been a Christian all my life. I actually became a Christian about, 29 years ago. And so I did a lot of different things to work through my heart junk. But, I've just found it interesting about God that when I give him my heart junk, my anxiety, my fear, my frustration, he turns it into fruit. So there's this redemptive transfer I've experienced with him. And maybe there's a way that you find that as well, where you give something up and you receive something more positive. But I found this to be true for me, that, he says in Galatians 5 that, I can receive love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control from him. So I found in that surrender process that there's an exchange that I benefit from, and that really helps me. So what does that look like for you? And maybe Chopra here from 2020, he's got some new thoughts about 6 principles to guide you in EI. He talks about never complaining, criticizing, or playing the victim. Well, let's just say we can't do that. We're human beings. That's going to happen. But what I think we can get at here from what he says is that, if we complain, do it 1 or 2 times, about it, but don't keep harping on it, so to speak. I got away with a friend one time, and we were in an older place we were staying, and, there was some must, and oh my goodness, I heard about it all weekend. I finally said, wow, tell me 1 or 2 times. I get it. It's musty in here, but it's taken away from the weekend. So yeah, so complain, do it 1 or 2 times, but try not to make it a pattern over something, because then that really pulls us down. Also, imagining that positive future for ourselves or for even other people, not letting regret from the past keep a hold on us, because it no longer exists. I mean, good point from Chopra, being present in the situations that we're in. Being present is really hard today because we have so many things coming at us, but just trying to be present. Sometimes when I reflect on just being present a moment, everything relaxes. It's really nice. Being independent of other people's criticism or approval. Well, there's a balance there, right? We want people's feedback. We want to learn about ourselves when we're not quite on with something, but we don't want to put them on a pedestal where they're above us and we're below. No. So be independent to a level where you can take the feedback, but you don't let it take you to too rough of a place. And then being responsive to feedback. Also, another point by this psychologist that I thought was really good, Dr. Drew Brannon, he talks about this green light theory where he teaches clients to have a routine with how to respond to trash talk. And so, you come up with a programmed response. And one of the ones that I have is, I might say to somebody, well, can you help me to understand where you're coming from here? When somebody's coming at me strong and I don't know what to do and I feel overwhelmed, well, help me understand where you're coming from. What did I miss here? What can I do to help? Those are kind of programmed responses for me when I feel like somebody's coming at me hard. So he suggests that. I hope that's helpful. I think I'm gonna have to get through, because we've had great questions. I'm gonna have to get through a few things, and I'm gonna do it kind of quick, because I do want to make sure we have time for the prizes. So maybe Carrie, we've got time for one or two questions. But it is getting close to one. So I want to respect your time. Can you give us a
We are
question?
caught up with the questions, Janine.
You what?
We are caught up with
Oh,
questions.
well, that's great. Okay, well, then let me go into this point that I would just like you to think about, what are you taking with you today? What are you going to do with this? And if you want to put it in chat, you go ahead, just to help other people think through what they're going to do and what they're taking with them too. But yes, that's an important question, that you have even just one thing that you're going to do a little differently. And then let me get into just take 2 minutes to talk with you about our MBA program in case you're interested. We do have an MBA info session coming up on February 18th. That's next Thursday at noon. You can sign up with our enrollment counselor, Daniel. If you need his information, once you're through this, just feel free to email Carrie. I'll have her email here and we can get you his contact info. But yeah, you just can sign up for that and he will share, and I will be in that session as well. We'll talk more through the MBA. Just to let you know, one thing is, if you're looking for a promotion, you don't have your MBA degree, these are some of the places our MBAs work. 50% of our students end up with a promotion while they're in the program, but then the other half usually get their promotion after they're finished with their coursework, because sometimes work and school and family can feel a little too much to then start a new job. But high promotion rate, which is exciting. Here's what an application is. I mean, it's the process. It's an application. You give a couple references. We want to see your resume because I want to see some of your work history, because I want to see where you've been so we know where you plan to go. So it's more about getting to know you more. And then we like to have you do a statement of purpose. It tells us where you would like to go with your career, so that we can make sure we got a good match, that we're matching you up well. We provide career coaches as part of our MBA program. So we like to make sure you get matched with a good career coach. It's going to help you get there too. Then of course your transcripts, and you get to talk to me again. So anyway, again, questions about that, you can talk to Daniel. And there's his email, there's his phone number. And again, we have that info session. All right, so now we've got a few minutes to take care of our prizes, which are really exciting. We've got our first prize is going to be this beautiful Bethel journal. And Carrie, would you draw a name for the person that will receive that? And what we'd like you to do, we're giving prizes away to our attendees. So just chat us your name to make sure that you're here, and we'll make sure you get that prize. Just send Carrie an email too to make sure she has your address. But put your name in chat if you're here. So Carrie, who's our prize winner for the journal?
Our first prize winner is Ashley Hagan. Is Ashley with us?
Hagan, can you affirm that you're with us in chat?
I'm not seeing Ashley.
Do you want to take the next?
Sure, it's Julie Johnston.
Julie Johnston, are you with us?
Julie's
Great,
here.
Okay. Julie, you've got a journal coming. All right, our next is our mug. It's like a camping mug. It's really cool. Who's our winner of that?
And Brenda Hanson.
Brenda Hanson, are you with us?
How about Dwayne Finn?
Dwayne Finn, are you with us?
How about Anna Fagan?
Anna Fagan.
Tim Audette.
Tim Audette, are you here?
Is David Ewart with us?
David.
Lisa Naser.
Lisa, are you here?
Is Brady Tongan with us? I am running out of names. I'm going to have to go back to the list, but we have Jenny.
Did Brady show up in chat?
Brady didn't, but Mark Dittman did. And this is really weird because he's next on my list.
Oh, wow. So he's got the camping mug. Awesome. Okay, you guys, we've got our next prize. I know we're just a minute, gonna maybe be a minute over, but our prize after this is a DoorDash gift certificate. So you don't want to miss that. So anyway, who gets our Bethel Shaky Cup?
Jenny Kraus.
Jenny, are you here?
Nadine Johnson.
Somebody came in on chat. Is that Jenny?
Oh, yes, Jenny's here. Yeah.
Yay, Jenny! Okay, so then the DoorDash gift certificate
goes to Nadine Johnson.
Nadine, are you here? You're going to get $25 in DoorDash.
She's here.
Yay! All right, you guys, it was great to be with you. Our next session is going to be Thursday, April 29th at noon. We're going to talk about combating COVID-19 with key performance indicators. We have Rick Olson, who's been in the healthcare industry, and he will be talking about that from a long-term care perspective. But any of you in healthcare or even interested in healthcare might really enjoy this webinar. So feel free to sign up. We'll have that out soon. And I appreciate you so much. And I hope you had a great time. We sure enjoyed you. Thanks for being with us an extra minute. Goodbye, everybody. Carrie.
Yes.
How did we do?
We probably need to leave, right?
No, we can talk if you want. No, because I think I stopped the webinar. I don't know. You might want to stop recording.
Give me just a minute.
Okay.